Welcome to another version of the 4-picket planter. This one is much more durable and I feel overall a better use of the material. Notice these gear marks or saw marks or some marks that come from the mill. Our goal here is to make the best possible picket planter for the price point. And pickets are popular because of the low price point. So I'm going to sand off these marks. Tim Ferriss, who I don't necessarily endorse, has a really good concept called the lowest effective dose, which is the smallest amount of something that you can do that still produces the desired outcome. And that's what we want to accomplish with our planter, is spend the least amount of money and put in the least amount of effort to create the best picket planter that we can. And unfortunately, that means we had to sand off those marks. So here I have my jig pieces. I'm going to install these pieces in my miter station so that I can register the pieces of wood to make my cuts. First, I screw in the jig piece into the marked section on my miter station, and then I set the saw to an 8-degree miter angle. Now here is an example of the lowest effective dose. This is the cheapest possible miter saw that you can find in the clearance section. And the way that you set the angle is you put it on the degree next to the degree you're looking for, and as you tighten it, it'll slowly find its way to what you want. And here we make an 8-degree cut, flip it over, it will register on that jig, and we make our other cut to end with a trapezoid shape. Flip it again, and this time add a spacer so that you end up with your shorter bottom section of the panel. Now let me say this, I never set out to become the masterful, handsome craftsman that I am today. I'm honestly just kind of frugal, and I don't like paying the price set by corporations for things like planters and miter saws. Now, I don't mean to devalue the amount of effort and time that is put into making such things, but I just disagree with the price set of that value, and I also just hate corporations. So I finished cutting each of these pieces, 8 pieces in total. A long one and a short one together makes a side of the planter. And let's examine what this thing is exactly. It's a planter. It's going to hold dirt. So what is the lowest effective dose that we can do to make a planter that holds dirt? So we've got galvanized brad nails and some hot dipped staples, which should do just a great job of holding this thing together for the glue to dry, as well as not be affected by the elements when this is kept outside. Most of the tools I'm using are from Harbor Freight, which is like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory if they sold belt sanders instead of sweets. It's the kind of place where you go in for a hammer and you come out with a drill press and a suspicious sense of confidence. But they line up with our lowest effective dose philosophy. And I thought that these 90-degree corner butt joint clips would be the same way, helping me to hold something in place while I nail it and glue it. But to be honest, they didn't work very well, and I'm very frustrated that my investment of 52 cents was a waste. Now we are using Titebond 3 glue because it is food safe once it dries, and so you could potentially grow food in this planter, which is important to me. Now Titebond is a name brand, and you might think that I'm above using name brand products, but unfortunately, Titebond 3 is the best thing that I can find for the price. Now you might be familiar with the legend of Charles Shaw wine, also known as $2 Chuck. This is a wine sold at Trader Joe's. It literally costs about $2. They did a blind taste test once, and it beat out all of the expensive stuff, $100 bottles of wine. When the winner was revealed to be none other than $2 Chuck, the sommelier set practically exploded, and vintners across Napa clutched their pearls and demanded a recount, claiming the results were flawed. But really, it was just the sting of knowing that their $85 Bordeaux had just lost to a budget bottle. And it turns out branding may cost more than grapes, and some folks are better at marketing than winemaking. So now we have to rip some 1 3/4 inch pieces. You can get 3 1 3/4 inch pieces out of a 5.5 inch picket, and we're going to use these for the legs, the cross members, the bottom, pretty much everything else in this planter. We've got another jig spacer here, and we are going to use that same 8-degree angle, although now instead of a trapezoid, we are making parallelograms. Now, it's true that I spent a lot of years as a defensive class warrior, mostly because I was jealous of wealthy folks. And I was jealous of the way that they got to go to Bora Bora, and I probably never will. But I've matured beyond that thinking, and now I'm just trying to live my life more practically. So I'm definitely not above paying a high price for quality. I just feel like the burden of proof of quality is on the product. And until I'm convinced one way or another, I'll keep to the status quo of the cheapest, best thing until I'm convinced otherwise. And right now, the cheapest, best thing is Titebond 3, as far as glue goes. One thing that we can do to very frugally increase the value of our planter is to hide all of the staple marks that are being left. So all of the staples are being placed somewhere that will either be covered or this is being stapled from the inside where the dirt's gonna be, so we don't have to worry about it. So you can see that the legs are covering the staple and glue of the butt joint here. And the staples are longer individually than 2 pieces put together. So we're gonna stop using staples at this point and start using our brad nails. The brad nails are just short of the width of 2 pieces of cedar put together. Now, if I'm being totally honest, I believe that pocket screws would probably make this thing a little more solid and structural. But honestly, they are a pain to deal with. And Craig's got the whole pocket screw game cornered, and I'm not about to throw my money at that monopoly. Until someone comes out with a generic version of pocket screws, I'm sticking with staples and brads. They are way cheaper, and when paired with the Titebond 3, they are just as effective. Something that I have neglected to film properly so that you may analyze it is the way that I'm angling these brads in. So here I have a warped leg that's coming apart a little bit. I want that glue to dry solid, so I clamp it together and I throw angled brads in, including these toenails, so that it'll keep it together long enough for the glue to dry and for it to become a solid piece. I really like to use this $2 spring activated center punch nail set thing when I have brads that don't go flush with the wood. Works really good to hammer them back into place without making a mess. Let's talk about these cedar pickets for a minute. They are the unsung heroes of the DIY woodworking world. Cedar has this natural resistance to rot and bugs, which makes it perfect for projects that are going to be outside or need to last. You can take little chunks of cedar and put them in your closet or your drawers or anywhere you think bugs might be, and it will repel them, which is kind of a nice quality. The one thing that I hate more than these crony corporatists is spiders. And if spiders don't like cedar, then I like cedar. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. As I cut these cross members, I leave a little bit of wood past the line, just so that I can size it up perfectly. You can always cut several times down to shape, but you can't undo it if you cut it too short. So I skin off a little extra piece and check the fit, and this looks about perfect. So I'm gonna glue it and nail it and call it good. Now these cross members, or whatever they're actually called in woodworking, really look pretty and make the planter have a more finished appearance. But in addition to that, I believe they add extra structure. It ties a little bit of the tension and compression together, especially once you end up adding the top rail or the cap or the lid or whatever that's called in woodworking. Again, please notice that I am angling these brad nails in at opposing angles to really lock that piece of wood towards its parent. And also, I don't know if this is okay or not, but I hate a measuring tape. For some reason I get it wrong all the time, so making a mark straight off the project seems to be a better solution. I'm sure that would have been an inch long if I used a measuring tape for some reason. Now let's get real for a second. I am certain there are woodworkers and original master craftsmen who are going to look at this and call it stupid and crappy. As if when something works, but it doesn't look like it came out of a fancy catalog, it's okay to call it dumb or stupid. But here's the deal. If it works, it's not stupid. Simple as that. There's this whole culture of this is the right way. And if you're not following some rule book, then clearly you don't know what you're doing. But guess what? Rules are kind of meant to be broken. You can make something work with just about anything as long as it does the job. And if you're saving time, money, or a hassle, I actually think that's just intelligent. I've been told that my table saw is a Harbor Freight saw and therefore I can't make anything. And sure, then I upgrade to the absolute highest caliber of contractor saw that's out there. And then they say, well, that's not a cabinet saw. You can't make a straight cut with that. And here's the thing, what they mean to say is they don't recognize the quality that that product can put out. And that's fine, they don't have to. But in the end, they have to concede to the very visceral fact that if it works, it's not stupid. If this planter can hold dirt and last 5 years, it has already outperformed any of the planters that you can get at the fanciest planter store you've ever been to. So now we're installing the top rail lid thing. I don't know the terminology, but it's the top part. And it makes it look really good, ties it together, and helps it to remain square. You can see I had to trim one of those legs to make it lay there flush and have a good surface to nail and glue to. Now these are cut with a compound miter cut. The miter angle is 45 degrees and the bevel is set to 8 degrees, which is the same for every angle in this project with the exception of that 45. Now we're gonna make our bottom, and we're doing this just with a straight cut, and these two pieces are going to be used as a, I believe the term would be ledger, to place our bottom pieces on. So we want to glue that and nail that really good. Again, this is adding to the structure but also the weight of this planter. We flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. Now I get it, people love to throw around that what's your time worth line when it comes to DIY projects. Sure, I could spend my weekend building a planter, but is that really worth my time when I could just buy one for 20 bucks at Home Depot? In reality, you can build this planter in about an hour, and if you practice it and have a jig set up, you could do it in less than an hour. And let's be honest, go to Home Depot and try to find a planter for less than 20 bucks. Good luck. Maybe, just maybe, you'll get a 6-inch round plastic one, which is only good for maybe one season. When you make stuff with your hands, it's not really just about saving money. There's this thing that happens, maybe a kind of synergy where the act of creating becomes a part of your life. If you've ever put a planter in your backyard or given one to your grandma that you built with your own 2 hands, you realize it's not just a piece of wood, it's a mini monument to your skills, your effort, your style, and your space. It's a symbol of a moment and not a mass-produced product that everyone else has. Using the minimum effective dose philosophy, you make your own things using the tools you have and can afford, and you make it with your style the way that you want it. You could be making something that's not just functional, but it's unique, and it's perfectly yours.